If you'd like to see more of our videos, hit the subscribe button to stay on top of the market news. Good morning, traders. Welcome to today's market review. This is Fred Razak at CMtrading. Today is November 11th, 2020. And today is Wednesday morning. So looking at the highlights of the day, the Dow Jones continues to show strength. But the question is how much longer? We're going to discuss that today. Now, looking at the economic events of the day, nothing major scheduled for today. But as we look at the markets, we're seeing the markets kind of consolidate and taper off at these levels after the massive news that we had yesterday from Pfizer coming out with a vaccine that's 90% effective in fighting off the coronavirus. Now, looking at the Dow Jones showing some strength, the Nasdaq showing some tremendous weakness. We're going to discuss the stocks there also. Commodities, gold looking at very, very weak, tapering off at these levels, while oil shows strength, trading above $42 a barrel. That's a major, major move. Now, looking at the stocks, we're showing us a rotation continue. The FANG stocks remain weak, while the bank stocks and Alcoa, which is a big board stock, is showing some strength. Now, lastly, looking at Bitcoin, it stays strong and showing some strength above that 15,000. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. So we're looking here at the Euro USD on a daily chart. You can see pretty much that we've tapered off above this 118.26-ish level, not really showing us any sort of indication it's going to go higher, but possibly going to go lower because we are at that top of the range. However, looking at the Gbp Usd, you see a different story. Gbp has gained tremendously over the past week. We're going to start looking at a weekly chart just to give us perspective. Now, we haven't been in these areas since sometime before the pandemic. Back in February of 2020, and also back in the end of August, beginning of September. So with that said, this is a tremendous gain after we broke above this 131.54. We're trading right now 132.80, and we're gaining on that upper limit here, versus the USD. So it may actually capitulate at this area and kind of give up some of the steam that it's gotten. You could see that it's actually, the bars are getting smaller as it's making these new highs. So just be aware of that the change may come all together, because remember, the markets are trading in tandem, meaning to say both the equity markets, the Dow Jones, and the currencies trade in an inverse value. Now, we've mentioned that several times before. We've also spoken about it at the webinars. Now, looking at the USD ZAR, this is very interesting. Hit that level of 1540 and bouncing off of it. This is really very, very important. Now, just to jump to another sector, just to contrast, if we look at the JSC, standing at that 53,162 at that high, so this really wants to look like it's going to take it above it, but if it falters here, I would really keep an eye on this because it does look like it's having some aggravation beating this line going into the 53,600-ish level. If it does falter, then we'll see a correctional move. Now, looking at gold, going back to our commodities, gold pretty much dead here, 1879, not really showing some strength after that bounce, after that colossal sell-off the other day with the news of Pfizer coming out. Now, oil, still very strong, $42.33 per barrel. Now, this hasn't been at these levels for quite some time. So I would look for continued strength here as this looks to make a comeback, as markets are kind of betting, that the markets are going to come back because of this vaccine, and markets are going to start opening up again. Now, when we look at the Dow Jones versus the Nasdaq, remember the Dow Jones represents big board stocks, the old school kind of economy, including the banks, the conglomerates, the high tech, not the high tech, specifically not the high tech, everything but the high tech, and the Nasdaq reflects all the high tech stocks. So when we look at it, looking at the Dow Jones here, we're showing some tremendous strength, trading at 29,500-ish level as it continues to plow ahead after we had that sell-off. Now this is very important. This shows that there is some strength here. It may make a double top here at 29,600-ish level. So just be aware of that. And because this is before hours, so this is not real buying. We will know this later today at 4 p.m. if this is a double top. Now, looking at the Nasdaq, it's dead. not going up here, okay? It should be somewhere in the 12,500-ish level, maybe even 13,000, but it's not because the stocks are not following through. The Apples, okay, which represents that stock, is dead. If we look at Microsoft, also dead, okay? If we look at some of the other stocks, Amazon, dead, okay? So the FANG stocks are really hurting right now, despite the fact that they were the strong ones going into this pandemic, okay? They were the one that carried us from the low, okay? Back then when we had in March 18th of 2020, when everything was just being sold off, they were not, and then they went higher, and now they're tapering off when the rest of the market is kind of rejuvenating itself, and that's exactly what's happening now. So money is being funneled out from some of these high-tech stocks, and they're bringing them into this old economy stocks, okay, including Jpmorgan. If we look at Jpmorgan, very strong and remaining strong, okay, about 116. But I am cautious here, okay? So just be cautious at these levels, because if they don't sustain themselves at these areas, we could see a sell-off. Now, when we look at some of the other stocks within that category, okay, the Bank of America, still relatively strong, $27. When we look at Pfizer, this was the one that took us higher. Look at it, okay, selling off here to a resistance-ish level, okay? I'm going to jump into a weekly chart just that you see that, okay? So this level is very, very important. I watch this very carefully today to see if we do get that bounce, okay? When we look at some of the other stocks that have been affected because of the pandemic, like Disney, okay, it's still retaining itself at these levels, okay? We're looking at a weekly chart. This was where it was trading before the pandemic at 142, okay, tapering off at this area, and we're right here right now at 142.20-ish level, okay? So this is very important. We are at really a very important place right now when we're looking at the stocks, because they do look like they're at either a breaking point on the downside, okay, or a sustainable move on the upside, okay? Now, lastly, looking at Alcoa, and this was the one, 1589 and on its highs, okay? We haven't been in this area since August 5th. If we look at a weekly chart, that is something to contend with, okay? Going back to February of last year, we were selling off before the pandemic. So this is really a very important part. Look at that, okay? This is right where we were at 1610. Or right below 1610, okay, at this area before the pandemic hit. So like I'm saying, again, this is really an important area today, that it has to sustain itself on the upside to show us some continued strength. Lastly, looking at Bitcoin, trading at 15,360, a cool level, not really receding itself, but may actually capitulate here. So just be aware of it, okay, because it is consolidating at this area. This is Fred Razak. I want to wish you guys a great trading day. Thank you.